Hello, I'm Charles Kobes, Australasia's passion provocateur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Charles Kobes Show. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or listening via one of the many podcast platforms, this is episode 186. Our format for the show is that I share today's big idea. I share 6 resources that might help you implement insights from the big idea. I review some key happenings during the week, and then the foundational principles for the show and more background about me is at the end of the show for newer viewers and listeners. So let's get into today's big idea. We know politicians lie. It's the old saying, isn't it? How do you know a politician is lying? His lips are moving. It's also pretty true that almost all of us lie. We call them white lies, we call them little lies. When Julie asks me how does she look, I always tell her she looks beautiful. And indeed she does. But some husbands have been known to say to their wives that they look terrific when they actually don't. Or how do I look in this outfit? And some husbands have learnt not to tell the truth. But I don't have such a problem because I have such a beautiful wife. Brutal honesty is tough, and it leads to a reduction of your friends. Our lack of self-awareness also makes brutal honesty difficult, because if I said to you, why do you do something? Many people really don't know. That's why the self-awareness journey and the way that I help my coaching clients get self-awareness is so important, because you discover more about yourself so you can make better decisions for your life. So brutal honesty not only loses you friends, but is very difficult to identify. Nevertheless, over the last few weeks, Australian federal and state politicians have been telling bigger and bigger and bigger blatant lies. Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, he recast them. They're not lies, I'm just changing my position. These politicians are blatantly lying. They're going against their policies that they told us they would stick to, that their policies for being elected were something, and then they've gone in a totally different direction. Oh, circumstances have changed. Now, we know they lie. It is blatant lies that I'm talking about. And my question to you is, are you willing to accept this? Are you happy about this? I'm not. I'm not willing to accept it. I'm not happy about it. I've taken an interest in politics for over 50 years. I say the standards of behaviour of the vast majority of politicians is dropping alarmingly. And we, in every nation, pay a price for bad behaviour by politicians. And it starts with blatant lies. What needs to be done? I say there are steps that can be taken. I say there are steps that are being taken. Firstly, we must speak up. We must speak up with our friends, with our families, to point out the blatant lies. And as a nation, we must put our politicians on notice. We will not stand for blatant lies. Now, calling them just lies is not enough. I'm talking about blatant. Now, in every court case that you go to, any case of negligence, the judges are sitting there trying to discern what reasonable behaviour is. Could damage have been reasonably foreseen? That's the test for negligence liability. Could you reasonably foresee that your behaviour would lead to injury? The courts, when they're properly operating, are very used to this question of making this decision and this distinction of a blatant lie versus a minor lie. I say we tell politicians from now on that they will be held to account for blatant lies. And we put them on notice now so that they can't say, we didn't know. And we put every candidate for political office on notice that if they tell blatant lies in office, we are going to take action against them when they leave office. We will make sure they're held to account. We will make sure they pay the price for their blatant lying. Because I say it's unacceptable. I say it's destroying the principles on which most countries are founded, of goodwill, of truth, of ethics, of morals. I say they count. And I say that Western civilization is founded on Christian principles over the last 2,000 years of not being able to harm other people. That's where the law of torts came about. Politicians who say their policy is X and then do Y will be held to account. You see, companies and individuals pay a price under the law for false and misleading conduct in business and generally. Also, if they tell lies, that's a crime. Fraud is a crime because if they tell lies and defraud people with the intent of getting a benefit, that is criminal. You go to jail for that sort of stuff. We have to hold the politicians to the same level of behaviour that we, the people, are. Because remember, they're our servants. Their power only comes from us. We are not their servants. We are not their slaves. And this is an important principle. They work for us, not vice versa. How would you like it if your employees lied blatantly to you? You and I pay their salaries. So I say all of us need to think about whether we're happy with these blatant lies. And if you're not, then start taking action. Why don't you write one letter a week? A physical letter, not just an email, but a physical letter to your local, state or federal or local elected politician. I then want freedom fighting groups, all sorts of groups that are fighting for human rights, to also write letters, to also get their members to write letters. This is an important step that we can do to put these guys on notice so that they can't say when they leave politics, oh, I've left politics now, I'm not liable. Yes, you are, and we're going to hold you to account. Advertisements need to be put into the alternate media, and there is such an explosion of alternate media all around the world. It is wonderful. For example, Tucker Carlson interviewed Vladimir Putin. 150 million views at the last number that I saw. 150 million. Like, he is way. Tucker Carlson is getting far more attention than mainstream media. And I say to you that only 30% of people are paying attention to mainstream media. All the alternate media is a source of outlet to publicise the blatant lies of politicians. We need to warn the pollies. Blatant lies are unacceptable, and it's up to you and me. Don't wait for others. Every step that you take, every politician that you put on notice, stops them having plausible deniability to say, oh, I didn't know that that was not okay. Yes, we're now telling you it is not okay. So, resources to think about the relevance of blatant lies, and think about it in your own life. Well, Julie and I have started watching a very interesting Netflix series called Loudermilk, and it's on Netflix, and it's all about being brutally honest. It's powerful, it is insightful on psychology, and it is funny. It's a great way to be reminded of the problems of brutal honesty. My book this week is by Mark Worthington, who I interviewed on TNT Radio last week. The book is called Not show me the money, but show me the harmony. Mark Worthington, I've helped him. I'm credited in this book with helping Mark in his journey. He's got his first book, Where Your Happiness Lies. Excellent book, Show Me the Harmony, because it might help politicians change the way they operate in the party room, but also helps major corporations in terms of going, how do we get a deep spiritual element into the hard-nosed world of corporates? And Mark's promise and my promise to you is the more spiritual elements there are in any team, the more successful it is. My health tip this week, I've got two of them. One of them is to visit the website World of Wellness. The website is wowintl.org. That's short for wowinternational.org. Have a look at that, because there are alternative health systems being set up in a number of places. And as you know, one of the keys to my health is plenty of coffee. Every time I have a mouth of this coffee, it makes me feel weller. World of Wellness, check it out. I'm a member, Julie's a member. It's got wonderful information about health. Secondly, we have invested in a bag of stuff that absorbs odors, bacteria, pollutants, allergens, and helps prevent mold, mildew, excess moisture. Small bag like this. It's activated charcoal. It's a trial that we're doing, but I'm getting more and more evidence of people who have suffered from mold. Indeed, mold is literally a fungus, and buildings sometimes have to be destroyed because of mold. So I'm interested in, because of all of the pollution in the air, trying this. It's a tip. Think about it. It could be, and I read the article on this. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Removing pollutants from the air. My spiritual tip. Think about, meditate upon, who have you helped over the last week, over the last 2 weeks? And think about in your life when you have helped somebody, how that's made you feel. It seems to be the case that when you help another person, it gives you enormous benefits. My quote is from Napoleon Bonaparte, but it's obviously relevant to this question of blatant lies. And Napoleon famously said, history is a set of lies agreed upon. And right now we're seeing history written. You say, what is the true history around anything? What is the history of a marriage? What is the history of a divorce? What is the history of World War II? What's the cause of World War II? I've read many, many books, all got different analyses of what happened in World War II, World War I. History is a set of lies agreed upon. And many times it is difficult to work out causation. What is it that caused something to happen? Lies are a complex topic. Blatant lies are unacceptable. And a quick politician joke. I think politicians should wear uniforms like Formula One race car drivers so that we know who their corporate sponsors are. There's a thought for you. So, take the steps to use today's big idea in terms of your assessment in your own life of your willingness to accept blatant lies by politicians. Then you might take that further to blatant lies from other leaders in your life. All part of your journey of self-awareness and passion. And if you work in an environment where there's plenty of blatant lies that kills your passion, I say leave that environment. I say if you want to get clearer on who you are and why you do what you do, come and do the self-awareness and passion quest. That's what will make the massive difference in your life when you gain clarity of decision making about what's important for you. I invite you to subscribe to this show on Rumble, on YouTube, on podcast. If you like it, share it with your family, your friends, your work colleagues. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, the most difficult topics in your life, send me an email. I will happily deal with the most difficult questions that you can put to me. Visit my websites, covest.com, charlescovest.com. And at charlescovest.com, there's full details of the self-awareness and passion quest. And you can make a time to have a half-hour, one-on-one, obligation-free conversation with me to explore how the self-awareness and passion quest might be useful for you. My first two books, Passionate People Produce and Passionate Performance, are also available at those two websites. Now let's review some key happenings over the last week. My guest on TNT Radio on Sunday the 11th of February is Linda Joy Ben, B-E-N-N, whose website is ben.com, and she is a health and well-being expert who's the founder of the Ben Method. I look forward to exploring her philosophy on health and well-being. My guest last week, as I said before, was Mark Worthington. I urge you to watch TNT Radio. There's no political correctness. It's a place for truth. It's a place of freedom, fighting for your freedom. The behaviour of the Labor Party in Australia in ramming through legislation that now purports to make it illegal for bosses to ring their employees out of work hours upon threat of jail is another attack on small to medium enterprises. Mark my words, right around the Western world, there's an unholy alliance going on between government and big business aiming to wipe out small to medium business. I urge all small to medium business owners to understand this threat. Imagine a dental practice not being able to ring staff at night because suddenly someone has got sick. It is outrageous, and we have to speak up about it. And it's the trade unions driving the labour movement. Now, you need to understand that less than 9% of Australians in the private workforce are members of unions. However, the trade unions control some $3 trillion of superannuation monies through the industry superannuation funds in Australia. Trade unions are getting subterranean influence over the Labor Party. But in fact, the unions are the Labor Party. And I urge you to understand that and to think about what that means. And if you're a small to medium business owner or work in one, please rise up against this outrageous attack on your future. Joe Biden is proving himself to be a total puppet. Joe Biden is incapable of clear thought, of clear speech. He is a puppet. I say Barack Obama is the puppet master. I say there's an evil intent going on in America. Joe Biden is clearly unfit for office, and as the special counsel has just declared, he is unfit to stand trial. Unfit to stand trial, but he's okay to be president of the United States. He's not the president of the United States. Wake up. If you think he is, please, you're being fooled, defrauded. You are being blatantly lied to. Just like we have been, over the last 4 years, blatantly lied to on most health matters by government. The level of lies is getting worse. Our awareness of those lies is rising. That's why I'm talking about politicians blatantly lying on this show, and they must be held to account. And lastly, a spot of good news. I'm president of the Australian Industrial Hemp Alliance, and this week I was invited by the New South Wales Minister for Agriculture to join an industrial hemp task force for the next 12 months to help guide decision-making within the New South Wales government for the decisions that will help the industrial hemp industry to grow. This is a wonderful move by the New South Wales government, and I'm delighted to be part of that task force. So, if you're new to the show, stick around. The foundational principles for the show and more background about me is available at the end of the show. Again, thanks for watching or listening. And until our next show, may your week be full of passion, full of challenge, full of willing embrace of those challenges, and happiness, because you can choose to be happy while you face these challenges. Have a great week. Thanks for being with us. See you next week. Bye. And now, for viewers and listeners who want to know more about my background and what else I do with my life, as well as the foundational principles of the show, here we are. Since 1993, when I left my legal career, a career that I love, to become Australasia's passion provocateur, I have inspired and provoked and educated and motivated people all over the world to discover and pursue their passion. I have helped people via the books that I've written, via speeches at conferences, via in-depth team building programs, workshops over 1, 2 or 3 days, or over 3 months, 6 months. And I've coached people of all ages, one-on-one, from small, medium and large enterprises, government enterprises, helping them to identify the often tiny changes that can make a massive difference. One of my core principles is that freedom is what makes us truly human. That's why one of the greatest threats that government imposes on you to force you to observe its laws is the threat of imprisonment, the loss of your freedom. Just think about that. Government says, if you don't behave yourself, we're going to put you in jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to lose my freedom. That's a reminder to you of why freedom is so important. Without freedom, you and I are not much different to animals. If you were locked up in a cage for the rest of your life, how different would you be to an animal? This commitment to fighting for freedoms for all people is carried out by me primarily through 5 channels. Number 1, preserving the freedom to pursue your passion. Number 2, inspiring you to be able to be free through excellent health. Number 3, helping preserve freedom throughout the world through the expansion of industrial hemp, a magnificent agricultural crop, an almost miraculous crop that enables every community to thrive independently of government. In this way, the power of government to take away freedom is minimized. Number 4, fighting for freedom through legal strategies. So I do work as a legal strategy consultant, as an interface between clients and their lawyers. And number 5, as chairman of the Australian Institute of Comedy and as a board member of the Australian Cartoon Museum, fighting for the freedom of thought and speech through uncensored comedy and humour, through avoiding political correctness in the comedic space. When you block freedom of speech, freedom of thought, that's the beginning of the end of your freedoms. The foundational principles for the Charles Kovess Show are founded on the formula SA plus P equals S. Your self-awareness added to your passion will guarantee that you are successful. And the best definition of success I have found in life is that success is the progressive realization of your worthy ideals. The progressive realization of your worthy ideals. This show is also guided by Socrates' famous principle and quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You can see I'm wearing my red jacket. I wear my red jacket for all my shows. Red is the color of passion, so that when you see me on the YouTube version, it reminds you that when you see red in your life, you ask yourself the question, am I pursuing my passion? What am I passionate about? Am I still passionate about that? What might I newly be passionate about? Each week I explore one big idea that can change your life. And it's just one big idea because there's a chance you will remember it. If I give you too many ideas, then we get confused and we don't do anything. Clarity leads to power. Confusion kills passion. Each week I share simple and practical resources that you've heard me describe in the earlier part of the show. A spiritual tip, a health tip, lyrics of a song, a book, a quote, and of course humour. This show is not politically correct. I have no intention of being politically correct. And I love certain addictions, including my addiction to great coffee, my addiction to exercise, my addiction to reading, and my addiction to certain other unmentionable in public type behaviours. Who would know what they are? This show definitely subscribes to the view that we have a spiritual life. So if you don't like discussion of spirituality, this show is not for you. I promise you that I don't include anything in this show that I don't consider to be true and that I have not found to be useful in the work that I've done over the past 28 years, but also over the past 50 years in business, as a lawyer, as a consultant advisor. I only want to share stuff with you that is of value to you. Finally, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact me at charles@covest.com. Again, thanks for watching and listening to my show. Bye.